The people of Afghanistan have gone through a very difficult and tragic time over the last 10 days. Let's speak about the current situation in Afghanistan with their envoy to India, Dr. Shaida Abdali. Dr. Abdali, thank you very much for speaking to Republic TV.
Pleasure to be with you.
Very, very sorry to hear about these attacks, at least 4 attacks which have led to 130 deaths. Who do you blame?
Thank you. Very tragic to lose people in such a big way. Recently, we've had a number of attacks in Afghanistan, as you know. In one attack, we lost more than 100, the ambulance one, just a few days ago. It's very unfortunate to see the continuation of the war against Afghanistan and the international community. It's clearly a declared war, a genocide, where we see a loss of over 100 people or around 100 people in one incident. And we should question as to how come a sudden spike in this kind of attack or attacks in Afghanistan. This is especially after the announcement of the U.S. South Asia policy for Afghanistan. And this responded in this way. And clearly a message that terrorism is used and will continue to be used. And now the ball is in our court, mean the international community and all of us, as to how we should respond. And we have two options. One is to give in to the use of terrorism against our people. And the second will be to combat and to respond in a much more stronger way. Because without a complete and without a united resolve of the international community, we will not be able to overcome the challenge. And clearly this is a war against the international community. In Afghanistan, you have seen in the last few days, we have lost a number of foreign nationals as well. So this is something that the whole world community should be worried, not only the Afghans.
I'd like to go by each attack. Let's look at the attack that took place on the Afghan military academy. One of your diplomats has said that this has the imprints of the Pakistani army. Some of the devices that were found on the terrorists were used by the Pakistani army and in the past have been given to terror groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba. How do you see this?
No doubt about where these terrorist attacks are traced to. They're all traced to Pakistan. And it should be a news for you or information to share with you. After the Kabul International Continental Hotel, the evidence we have, which traces to Pakistan, this morning our Interior Minister or Intelligence Chief both have gone to Islamabad to share the evidence of these attacks planned, conducted, and instructed from there and causing the loss of many Afghan lives and international partners.
That's really big, Ambassador Abdali. So you're saying that Afghanistan security forces have conclusive evidence that the Intercontinental Hotel attack was carried out by sources in the ISI, Pakistani army, and the Pakistani
They were planned and conducted from Pakistan. And this morning, our intelligence chief and the interior minister went to Islamabad to share that evidence.
There was also a report which said that ISI had trained one of the attackers. Is that correct?
Well, when it is traced to Pakistan, when it comes from a territory, that sums up the whole issue, where you can say that this is use of terrorism and the tolerance to terrorist groups. The training grounds, the safe sanctuaries there. So clear, there is no any doubt anymore. It's no longer an accusation. This is a fact that the whole world is talking about. And I hope that the world community, every one of us, will not limit ourselves, our actions to condemnation and statements. We must go beyond our statements that we give with regard to the attacks conducted in Afghanistan against Afghanistan and the Afghan people and the international community, and we should go beyond.
Talking about the Kabul ambulance attack, US reports have suggested that this was an attack that couldn't have been carried out by the Taliban in itself. Clearly, the Haqqani group was supporting them, and we all know where the Haqqanis are.
Clearly, as I said earlier, the Haqqanis and other terrorist groups are based in Pakistan, and Pakistan has also not denied it. They always speak about their role to be instrumental in bringing the Taliban and the Haqqanis to the negotiation table. And so everything is clearer, and the only thing which is missing right now is the response to be positive with regard to our call to end the use of terrorism and the international community as a whole. Now, whole world is speaking about terrorism. You have seen the US government statements with regard to especially the South Asia policy, which is so clear. It can't be clearer than this, which speaks about the safe sanctuaries, which speaks about the use of terrorism and the resolve, how the world community and the US will deal with this. And we hope that we will see the action on the ground as soon as possible and meet what promises we made.
The US president spelled out his new strategy on the 1st of this year, on the 1st of January, where he said that we are frustrated now with the lack of action that lack of action by Pakistan against terror groups. Do you feel that the kind of terror attacks we've seen in the last 10 days is a direct response to that?
I think so, because since the announcement of the US policy and the subsequent statements, we've only seen increase in the attacks in Afghanistan, which relates to the pressure that is building on how we should stop this terrorism in Afghanistan. So it's the message. And now I think the resolve is being tested. The resolve of the international community and the resolve of the Afghan people. And of course our resolve without any doubt will remain strong forever. We will remain committed to the defense of Afghanistan against any aggression. And we have proven this in our history. And now it is up to the world community, the US and other partners, and India including, to show the resolve, how practically we show our resolve in the face of this clear war against us.
Why do we see so much of defiance from Pakistan? They are condemning the attacks in Kabul and Afghanistan, saying we have nothing to do with it. Terror sanctuaries lie beyond Pakistan in Afghanistan, and don't blame us for it. Why do we see so much of defiance despite US pressure, despite US putting a hold to all the coalition support?
Well, it's very strange, and this question should be posed to the people there. I mean, really very unfortunate to see the efforts of the Afghan government, the international community over the last 16 years, continuously. The last administration, Obama administration, was more focused on political plus strategy to resolve the problem of terrorism. This administration is more military plus political. But if you look at both, no one was responded positively. And we see sometime when it's more military, we say that, well, it should not be more military. We also tested and experienced Obama's strategy. That also did not work. Therefore, the problem is not with the strategy. The problem is with the intention, the will. That has not changed.
The will has not changed. Would you call Pakistan an ally in fighting terror anymore? US has always treated Pakistan as an ally. Today in the State of the Union address, Donald Trump said that the rules of engagement have changed. We're no longer going to tell our enemies about our plans.
Well, that's the right strategy. But I must add one thing, that, bombing only in Afghanistan will not resolve the problem. We've been fighting over the last 16 years. In Afghanistan, it's like, a machine and a product. We have to dismantle the machine rather than the product of the machine. These elements that we kill are the product of the machinery that is behind this. And they keep coming. Therefore, while we support, strong action against the elements affiliated to these terrorist groups, I think the focus must go to the sanctuaries, to the places where these terrorists are kept, trained, indoctrinated, and sent. And that will really ultimately take us to the right result.
And the machinery lies in Pakistan?
Certainly.
Yeah. Recently, we saw US drone strikes on a Haqqani hideout where one of their top members were killed. Do you feel that we now need more such action where we don't tell Pakistan what we're planning to do and eliminate these groups? Because as a top US official had recently pointed out, that either Pakistan now takes action or they will.
Well, ideally, we will never like action, military. And the Afghans, peace-loving people. And we have sacrificed for peace all along. The High Peace Council was established. Taliban office was agreed upon in Doha. All of these actions manifested Afghanistan's resolve and the will to resolve the problem politically. But the problem is that we are only responded by violence and increased violence. Therefore, we are dying today. And I cannot say that, well, it should be only our people dying. And there should be no action elsewhere. Therefore, Afghanistan is compelled. We are compelled to see a reciprocity to the use of terrorism in a manner that will really dismantle the infrastructure over there.
Do you really feel that the US policy over the last 16, 17 years is really working? Because the amount of violence we've seen has only grown, the casualties have grown. Today there's a BBC report which actually suggests that the Taliban is actually active in 70% of the Afghan territory. So how much has this military campaign by the US succeeded?
No, the resolve, the commitment is really appreciated. But the only thing I think required here is to invest that commitment properly, in proper places. Nipping this in a bud will be more effective than simply going after the symptoms of the problem. These terrorist groups are the symptoms of infrastructure, of the political goals of a state. Therefore, I think the focus, if it goes properly, when you speak about military approach, will be much more effective than simply going against the elements or the remnants of these terrorist groups when they enter Afghanistan. So they should be stopped before they enter Afghanistan. That's the solution that would be more helpful in the war against terrorism.
We have been seeing increasing amount of trade between India and Afghanistan. We're using Chabahar port. We have air connectivity routes also. Do you feel that it's now time to utilize these routes to their optimum potential so as to also hurt Pakistan economically?
Well, certainly Afghanistan, India, and the rest of the region should always look for alternatives. And we have to diversify our trade links, which is basically not to hurt anyone, but to find our ways and break this monopoly. If anyone tries to monopolize the trade route for any certain country, and obviously Afghanistan is the victim of that kind of monopoly of Pakistan for many years. And Chabahar is a breakthrough. And I must appreciate Prime Minister Modi particularly, and the Afghan leadership, and of course the Iranian leadership for making this breakthrough happen recently. I think this is a major step forward in order to connect our economies, in order to break this monopoly that certain countries are the victim of. And we should try to utilize it as soon as possible. And we've already used it, but of course a lot more needs to be done. The infrastructure, roads and railways to be constructed so that we can utilize this to the fullest potential.
Do you welcome the changing US strategy? The US has now put Pakistan on notice. It's very clear. Top US officials have gone and said that we would only extend support once you show some reliable action against terror groups on your soil. So do you welcome this policy?
Absolutely. Fully behind. I think President Trump was, very right to announce the strategy for South Asia and Afghanistan so clearly. We had never seen that kind of clarity in the last 16 years. He was the first president to say it so plainly and exactly responding to the call of the Afghans. And we had always been talking about the sanctuaries, the terrorist infrastructure across the Dural Line. And that was the first president who approved what we said. And therefore, we're glad about the strategy. We are glad about the continued statement that we're seeing. The first tweet of the year was highly appreciated. But I must tell you that we are waiting for these statements to be matched by actions on the ground. Otherwise, the terrorists or the backers of terrorists would be emboldened by seeing no action on the ground.
Because in the past also we have seen there are officials in the US administration who feel that Pakistan should continue being an ally for US's strategic interests. My next question, Dr. Abdali, is about the fact that India has also been a victim of cross-border terror from Pakistan. Despite all the pressure from India, despite the pressure from the United States, we look at the likes of Hafiz Saeed. He's a 2611 mastermind, a globally designated terrorist. Sayyid Salahuddin, who is a terrorist who has been designated by the US State Department. They openly make statements against India on Kashmir and also against the United States. So the fact that these people are able to move around like politicians, give press conferences in Pakistan, what does it show?
Well, I mean, you see, when you talk about partnership, I think the US strategy did not single out anyone when it comes to partnership. He called on Pakistan to be a partner. But there were conditions how that partnership will happen. So we really look forward to partnerships in this region, because unless we unite, unless we collectively address this problem, we will not be a safe and secure region and the world ultimately. Therefore, the partnership request and the partnership effort to be built is there. But if this partnership is not reciprocated the way we all desire, then certainly we should deal with it properly. And we know of these terrorist groups. In our case, we know of the Taliban and the Haqqanis stationed. And same is the case with regard to India. I mean, so we have this problem, as I said earlier, it's a regional and global problem. I think if today Afghanistan is suffering the most, we should make no mistake to think about the ultimate spillover effects of terrorism in Afghanistan over the rest of the region. It is clear that these terrorist groups look beyond Afghanistan. For example, Daesh does not look primarily on Afghanistan. It looks at the wider region to destabilize. Therefore, I think it's really a time that the regional countries, those who are indifferent to the evolving situation, must wake up to a danger, to an alarm coming ultimately to their doors at some point, to really deal with Afghanistan together with the international community, the problem that is coming in front of us.
And one of my final questions, do you think Pakistan now has become completely isolated? Do you think the world today knows the reality of Pakistan and its approach to terror?
Well, certainly the image, if you look at the world community, how it looks at Pakistan, we would have not desired as people, peace-loving people of any country like that, but it is happening to Pakistan. And I think it is really time that we change what we do. Clearly, the people of Pakistan are as good people as anyone else in this region. We have lived in Pakistan for years, and our refugees are still there. But the problem is really with the government, with the policy, and that policy has to change.
Right.
Otherwise, it will be further marginalized, without any doubt, and we hope that the world will not spare any country, any spoiler, to continue with subversive activities, with killing people as they do in Afghanistan elsewhere, without any real response.
And finally, sir, India has said it and made it very clear that we will not put boots on the ground in Afghanistan. Do you agree with that policy? And what kind of support would you hope from India in the year 2018? Be it military, be it for your police forces, or be it with civilian infrastructure?
Well, Afghanistan does not lack boots when it comes to dealing with terrorism. We have our own strong army, and we have our own police, and we have NATO forces in Afghanistan. I think it is time now to strengthen Afghanistan, the Afghan National Security Forces, the police and the army, and they are being strengthened more than before. We're happy that our army and the Air Force is being strongly assisted nowadays. And therefore, we also hope that India will join the rest of the world, the US and NATO countries, to strengthen the Afghan defense forces, which they do. We are grateful to India for training, for giving us some military assistance. But Afghanistan and the people of Afghanistan are brave enough to defend their country when it comes to combating and dealing with aggression. Afghans defeated the Soviet Union as world power. Therefore, we don't lack courage. We only lack the enablers, the security assistance, the defense, the equipments, and we hope that India and the rest of the world will focus on Afghanistan's strength rather than simply think about the boots on the ground.
Right. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Dr. Abdali.
Welcome. Thank you.